Most people think short trips are harmless. You're not driving far, you're not pushing the engine hard, you're barely burning any fuel. What could possibly go wrong? Here's the reality. Short trips are one of the most damaging things a modern engine deals with on a regular basis. Not because of what happens during the drive, because of what doesn't happen. Your engine never fully warms up. And when an engine repeatedly runs cold, starts cold, and shuts off cold, a specific set of problems builds up inside it that most drivers never see coming until they're staring at a repair bill they weren't expecting. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly what's happening inside your engine every time you take a short drive, why it matters, and what you can do about it. This is real engineering, not exaggeration. Let's start with the basics, because understanding the problem requires understanding what your engine actually needs to run properly. A healthy engine operates at a coolant temperature between 195 and 220 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature range, everything works the way it was designed to. The fuel burns cleanly and completely. The oil reaches its proper viscosity and circulates effectively through every bearing, every camshaft journal, every critical surface that needs lubrication. The piston rings seat properly against the cylinder walls and seal the combustion chamber the way they're supposed to. The positive crankcase ventilation system, the PCV system, works correctly to remove combustion byproducts from the crankcase before they contaminate the oil. Everything is in balance at operating temperature. The key word is temperature. Getting there takes time and miles. Most engines take somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes of actual driving, not idling, to bring the coolant up to its normal operating range. But here's something most drivers don't know. The coolant temperature gauge on your dashboard reaches normal before your engine oil does. Coolant heats up faster because it circulates through the engine block directly and picks up heat quickly. Oil takes longer because it's circulating through a larger volume of metal, through longer passages, and through a much bigger temperature range before it reaches full operating viscosity and temperature, depending on the vehicle, ambient temperature and driving conditions. Engine oil can take 15 to 20 minutes of driving to fully reach operating temperature, and that's in normal conditions. In cold weather or stop-and-go traffic, it takes even longer. So when your dashboard temperature gauge is reading normal after 5 minutes of driving, your oil is still working its way up. Your engine looks warmed up, but it isn't fully there yet. Now here's what that means in practice. If your typical drive is 5 minutes to the grocery store, or 8 minutes to drop the kids off at school, or for minutes to the coffee shop and back, your engine is starting cold, warming up partway, and shutting off before it ever fully gets there, and then doing the whole thing again next time. This cycle, repeated day after day, creates 3 specific problems inside the engine that accumulate over time. Understanding all 3 is key to understanding why short trip driving is classified as severe service by every major automaker. The first problem is moisture. This one surprises a lot of people. During combustion, when gasoline burns in the cylinder, one of the byproducts is water vapor. It's a normal, unavoidable part of how gasoline combustion works. Hydrogen atoms in the fuel combine with oxygen and produce water. Under normal conditions, that water vapor moves through the exhaust system and exits at the tailpipe. You've probably seen it on cold mornings. The small puff of steam or visible vapor coming out of the exhaust when you first start the engine. That's normal, and it goes away once the exhaust system warms up enough to keep the water vapor from condensing. But some of that moisture doesn't make it through the exhaust. Small amounts of combustion gases slip past the piston rings. This is a normal process called blow-by, and every engine does it to some extent, and these gases carrying moisture enter the crankcase where the oil lives. When an engine reaches full operating temperature and holds it there, the heat in the oil pan and throughout the engine is enough to evaporate that moisture back out of the oil. It passes through the PCV system and gets burned off. The oil stays clean. But when the engine shuts off before it's fully warmed up, that moisture stays in the oil. It doesn't evaporate. It sits there, and this is where it gets serious. Water in engine oil doesn't just dilute it. It reacts with other combustion byproducts to form weak acids. These acids are corrosive to the metal surfaces your oil is supposed to protect. Bearings, cylinder walls, camshaft lobes, valve train components, the same surface as the oil, is there to preserve. Research on oil degradation confirms that as little as 0.001 1% water contamination can significantly reduce bearing life. That's an almost immeasurable amount of water causing measurable damage to critical components. And in a short trip-dominated vehicle, that moisture is continuously accumulating because the engine never runs long enough or hot enough to burn it off. Over time, this moisture contamination combined with other byproducts of incomplete combustion leads to oil sludge. Sludge is exactly what it sounds like, a thick, dark, semi-solid deposit that forms when engine oil breaks down and the contamination products combine. It clogs oil passages. It coats oil control rings, causing them to stick and lose their ability to scrape oil off the cylinder walls. It builds up in the valley of the engine, around the oil pump pickup screen, in the small passages leading to camshaft bearings and hydraulic lifters. Once sludge develops to a significant degree, it's not something you fix with an oil change. Cleaning it out typically requires engine disassembly, and in severe cases can mean the difference between a thorough cleaning job and a complete engine replacement. The repair cost depends entirely on how bad it's gotten, but full engine sludge remediation is never cheap. Preventing it by understanding what causes it is far better than dealing with it after the fact. The second problem short trips create is fuel dilution. This is connected to how a cold engine manages fuel delivery. Modern engines use the engine control module, the computer, to monitor engine temperature and adjust the fuel mixture accordingly. When the engine is cold, the ECM enriches the mixture, meaning it deliberately adds more fuel than the engine would use at operating temperature. This he-she cold start mixture is necessary because cold fuel doesn't vaporize as efficiently as warm fuel, and cold combustion chamber temperatures mean the fuel doesn't burn as completely. The engine needs extra fuel to run smoothly from a cold start. Here's the problem. When a cold engine runs rich, not all of that extra fuel burns completely in the combustion chamber. Some of it, unburned liquid fuel, gets past the piston rings and into the crankcase. This is fuel dilution. Under normal conditions, when the engine reaches full operating temperature, two things happen. The mixture leans out as the ECM sees the engine is warm and reduces fuel delivery, and the heat in the engine evaporates out the small amount of fuel that made it into the oil. The oil stays clean and effective, but in a short-trip vehicle that never fully warms up, the engine runs rich for a larger percentage of its operating time than it should, and the fuel that gets into the oil never fully evaporates out. It builds up. Fuel-contaminated oil has lower viscosity than clean oil. It's thinner than it should be. The anti-wear additives that protect your bearings and valve train are working in a solution that's been compromised. The oil is still there. The level looks fine on the dipstick, but its ability to protect the engine is significantly reduced compared to clean, uncontaminated oil. This fuel dilution problem gets worse in specific contexts. Jalopnik's automotive reporting on this topic notes that fuel washing down cylinder walls, which happens when excess fuel runs down the cylinder wall instead of staying in the combustion zone, strips away the thin oil film on the cylinder wall surface. Those walls depend on a continuous oil film to prevent metal-to-metal contact with the piston rings. When fuel washes that film away, the rings are running against a drier surface than they should be. Over thousands of miles of short-trip driving, this accelerates cylinder wall wear and piston ring wear, the same components that, when they fail, cause oil consumption, blow-by, and eventually the kind of engine damage that requires major internal work to address. The third problem is one that's particularly relevant to modern engines, and it's gotten worse over the last 15 years as engine technology has changed. Carbon buildup, specifically on intake valves. And to understand why this has become a bigger issue in recent years, you need to understand a bit about how modern direct injection engines work. Traditional port-injected engines, the dominant design for most of the 20th century, sprayed fuel directly into the intake port, upstream of the intake valve. This meant that fuel spray constantly washed over the back of the intake valve during every engine cycle. That fuel spray acted as a solvent, cleaning off any carbon deposits before they could build up significantly. The intake valves in port-injected engines tend to stay relatively clean as a result. Direct injection engines, which now represent the majority of new gasoline engines sold in America, spray fuel directly into the combustion chamber, bypassing the intake valve entirely. This is more efficient and allows for more precise fuel delivery and better power output. which is why automakers have moved so heavily in this direction. But it eliminates that constant fuel washing of the intake valve. The back of a direct injection intake valve is exposed only to intake air and whatever combustion byproducts blow back past the valve during overlap, including oil vapor from the PCV system, without the cleaning effect of fuel spray. Carbon deposits from oil vapor and combustion residue build up on the back of the valve. Over time, these deposits get thick enough to interfere with how cleanly the valve seals against its seat, thick enough to disrupt airflow into the cylinder, thick enough to cause rough idle, hesitation, reduced power, and eventually misfires, if not addressed. This carbon build-up problem affects every direct injection engine, regardless of how it's maintained. But it accumulates significantly faster in short-trip vehicles. Here's why. In a short-trip engine that never fully warms up, combustion is less complete, which means more combustion byproducts are present in the crankcase and in the air that circulates through the PCV system. That PCV air carries oil vapor and combustion residue directly into the intake, where it passes over the intake valves. More residue in the PCV air means faster carbon accumulation on the valve faces. Additionally, a cold engine running a rich mixture produces more incomplete combustion products generally, which means more carbon precursors in the entire intake system. Short trips accelerate the timeline on a problem that every direct injection engine is already dealing with. Cleaning carbon deposits from direct injection intake valves isn't something you can do with an additive or a fuel treatment, because the valves are upstream of where fuel is injected. The effective solutions are either a walnut blasting procedure, where a shop uses crushed walnut shells blown under pressure through the intake ports to physically blast off the deposits, or a chemical cleaning service that physically sprays solvent into the intake. Either way, you're looking at a service that typically costs $300 to $600 at a reputable shop, and it's something that needs to be done every 50,000 to 80,000 miles on many direct injection vehicles, regardless of how they're driven. Short-trip dominated vehicles often need it sooner. Now let's talk about what short-trip driving does to your oil change interval, because this is where a lot of drivers make a mistake that compounds all the problems we've already discussed. Miles, when using synthetic oil under what manufacturers call normal driving conditions. But here's the thing, short-trip driving is specifically listed as a severe driving condition by every major automaker. Check your owner's manual, and you'll find a definition of severe service that almost always includes frequent trips of less than 5 miles in normal temperatures or less than 10 miles in below freezing temperatures. Severe service intervals are shorter than standard intervals, typically 3,000 to 5,000 miles, or every 3 to 6 months by time rather than mileage. The reason for the shorter interval is exactly what we've been talking about. Oil in a short-trip vehicle degrades faster than oil in a highway-driven vehicle, not because it's accumulated more miles, but because of moisture contamination, fuel dilution, additive depletion conditions, and the acidic byproducts of running cold repeatedly. A vehicle that drives for 1,000 miles per year but does it almost entirely in short trips has oil that may be significantly more contaminated after those for 1,000 miles than a vehicle that drove 8,000 miles primarily on the highway. The mileage trigger alone doesn't tell the whole story. The time trigger, that 6-month or 1-year interval, exists specifically for low mileage, short trip drivers, and it matters. If your driving is primarily short trips, you should be changing your oil on the time-based interval, not waiting until you hit the mileage number. If your manual says every 7,500 miles or 12 months, and you've hit 12 months but only driven for 1,000 miles, change the oil. Don't wait for the mileage. The 12-month interval is there for exactly your situation. This is one of the most practical and inexpensive things you can do to protect an engine that's doing a lot of short-trip driving. Keep fresh oil in it more frequently than the mileage alone would suggest. There's also an argument for using a high-quality full synthetic oil if you're primarily a short-trip driver, even if your vehicle's manual allows conventional oil. Synthetic oil has better resistance to moisture contamination and fuel dilution than conventional oil. It maintains its viscosity more consistently under the kinds of partial warm-up, stop-start conditions that short trips create. The additive package in quality synthetic oil is more robust against the kinds of degradation that short-trip conditions accelerate. The price difference between conventional and synthetic is real. But in a short trip application where the oil is doing more work per mile than it would in a highway application, the protection advantage of synthetic is more valuable. Brands like Mobil 1, Castrol Edge, Pennzoil Platinum, and Valvoline Advanced are all legitimate choices that provide this advantage. Here's the fix that most mechanics will tell you about when the topic of short trip damage comes up. Once a week, or at minimum once every couple of weeks, take a 20 to 30-minute drive where the engine has a chance to fully reach operating temperature and hold it there. This isn't about driving fast or working the engine hard. It's simply about giving the oil enough time at full operating temperature to evaporate the moisture and fuel contamination that's accumulated during the week of short trips. It's about letting the PCV system operate at full effectiveness in burning off the crankcase vapors. It's about letting the engine rings and cylinder walls operate at the temperatures and pressures they were designed for, sealing properly and wearing minimally. This habit one longer drive per week meaningfully reduces the cumulative damage from short trip driving. And it costs nothing but a little time and fuel. Think of it like this. Short trips are the driving equivalent of only exercising for 2 minutes at a time. The systems that need to come up to operating condition and sustain it, your cardiovascular system, in that analogy, or your engine's lubrication and combustion systems, never get the sustained operation they need to actually clean themselves out and work at full efficiency. One sustained session does more for the health of the system than many short bursts. There are also a few other practical steps worth taking if your driving is predominantly short trips. First, check your oil level and condition more frequently than you would otherwise. For a vehicle doing lots of short trips, monthly dipstick checks are worthwhile. If the oil on the dipstick smells noticeably like fuel, a distinct gasoline odor, that's a sign of fuel dilution that should prompt an earlier than scheduled oil change. If the oil looks grey or milky rather than the expected dark brown or black, that's moisture contamination and warrants immediate attention. Normal oil goes dark over time as it picks up combustion byproducts, which is expected. Milky or grey is a different problem. Second, if your vehicle is a direct injection engine, which you can confirm by checking your owner's manual or looking up your specific engine, ask your mechanic about the intake valve cleaning interval for your particular vehicle. Some manufacturers have issued service recommendations for this procedure at specific mileage points. Knowing the interval and staying ahead of it is less expensive than waiting until the carbon buildup is causing drivability symptoms. Third, pay attention to how your engine starts. A healthy engine on a cold morning starts cleanly and settles into a smooth idle within a few seconds. Rough idle on cold starts that takes longer than usual to smooth out, hesitation on acceleration when cold, or noticeably different performance when cold versus warm can all be early indicators that fuel dilution or carbon deposits are getting to the point where they're affecting engine operation. These aren't emergencies, but they're signals worth paying attention to before they get worse. The bigger picture here is that the way most Americans drive their cars, lots of short errands, frequent cold starts, rarely sustained highway driving, is categorically different from the driving conditions engines were designed and tested to thrive in. Engines are built for sustained operation at temperature. They're built to handle cold starts because cold starts are unavoidable, but they're not built to operate primarily in the cold start, partial warm-up, shutdown cycle that short-trip dominated driving creates. Understanding that mismatch is the first step to managing it effectively. You don't have to change how you drive entirely. You just have to understand what the engine needs to counteract the effects of short-trip use, and give it that periodically. Change your oil on the time interval, not just the mileage interval. Use full synthetic if you're a short-trip driver. Take one longer drive per week to let the engine properly warm up and clean itself out. Check your oil condition regularly. Stay ahead of carbon cleaning on direct injection engines. Do these things and your engine will handle short-trip use far better than one that's being maintained as if it spends all day on the highway. If this gave you a better picture of what your engine is dealing with, hit the like button. It helps this video reach more drivers who are unknowingly putting extra wear on their engines without knowing why. Drop a comment and tell me how long your typical daily drive is. I'm curious how many people are in the short trip category. Subscribe if you want more straightforward, honest car information without anything to sell you. There's a lot more coming.